and that it's one of those events that once you do it, you either are totally hooked or you'll never touch it again.
How did you first become acquainted with Tevis?
Well, I was crewed for Dave Poston,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and then one year I was going to ride it in '77, but I had a horse go. I couldn't get in. That's what it was, and Dave tried to get me in through Hank Cook, who was a veterinarian at that time. Oh, Hank. So that's the way I got started doing 100. But I was always leery about 100s. I did 50s before, but I was always leery about doing 100 on a horse, and I didn't know the Tevis Trail. So at that time, and that's how I got started. I helped Dave. I crewed for him a few times. We used to go through, come out of, to go into Robinson Flat. We used to come out of up there where you're going to start
Come.
this time.
Okay.
Oh, Soda Springs?
Soda Springs. That was a
Yeah.
very narrow road, pulling a big full horse trailer, trying to get to the crew at Robinson Flat. You crewed yourself. You had to crew all stops because there wasn't nobody crewing for you at that
Right.
time.
No brand mashes. And
No, ran,
No.
no.
No,
The
none of that.
The horse trailers
Brought your
followed the
You
Horses.
brought your own water in unless you pumped
Yeah.
it there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the worst one was White Oak Flat because trailers were going in and out, and a lot of trailers got pushed off the road a long time ago. Anyway, so I started in '78.
Yeah.
And another thing is how I got kind of interested in it about 1973. Okay, Jim Larimer. I don't know if you know Jim Larimer. He came in, he worked for Wendell at the mill, Auburn Mill, and up there by the Hart Federal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he'd come in with a truck to pick. I worked for Burnett Sons. Anyway, and he come in. He had a Tevis buckle. And I said, "How do you get that?"
Mm-hmm.
He told me.
And you thought, I want more than one.
Well, I like Tevis.
So what parts of the trail did you? Okay, you rode a mule 8 times. Was she the first one you rode on the Tevis, or did you ride a different type of horse first?
She was the first mule that I had and trained her, worked on her, okay, and she was young. And I had a horse ready to go to Tevis. It was a big Anglo-Arab mare, okay. And so at that time, well, she went lame. And Sarah only done 125. So I said, Sarah's going. Okay, the mule's going, that's Sarah. So I took Sarah on '78, and that's when I got hooked on Tevis, because I did it every year for 8 in a row, and then I ended up doing 11 of them.
Okay. So you rode Sarah on 8 in a row rides, which is
Yeah, from 1978 to 1984.
Mm-hmm.
She,
So are there certain parts of the trail that you liked best when you rode her?
I liked all the part of the trail. I mean, they've changed it several times, but even the start was fun. I mean, it was all fun. It was all crazy. It's like racing a car. You're out there with a whole string of people and you're trying to find your spot to where you, as far as you go, it's like running a marathon. Okay, you're running a marathon for quite a while. Okay, and then you're passing people, and then pretty soon you're with the people that you should be with. You're at your speed and what your horse can do, okay?
So timing, I mean, rating your animal is important. Not
Yeah,
to override them.
learn to rate your animal or what you're riding, or you're not going to make it.
Okay, so what are the biggest changes that you've seen happen over Tevis since you first started?
The biggest changes was when some of the trail that Wendell put in, took it out of Forest Hill. Okay, we still did Michigan Bluff. Left out of Squaw Valley, and then he changed it to the Tevis Campground Roby Park. and we went through several changes, and I read it 9 different ways when I wrote it, and the last one I did was out of Roby Park.
Okay, how about the vetting? And you used to have 3 1-hour stops. Now they have like 10 gate and goes. And do you think that's helped the tow?
Well, the stops where Robinson was, they still had Lion Ridge, which was a trot by at that time. Okay, and you left Robin Ridge and you went down to Road Crossing. Well, Road Crossing, they at that time checked your pulse. Then you went over Kavanaugh Ridge, which is a rocky, really rocky road, and then down and up through Elephant's Trunk, and then you took down on into Robinson Flat, down through Duncan Canyon, and back out of Duncan Canyon to Robinson Flat, and there you had an hour hold with the vets. And then you left there and you went. God, I don't remember all of it, some of it, but you went down to.
Last Chance, next one.
Well, you ended up at Devil's Thumb, but that way you did the first canyon, and then you went from there on down to American River Canyon, down to the Swinging Bridge, and back up out of there, and into whatever come next.
Michigan, yeah. It was after.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used to, you started at Squaw, and you went up and over, and you did the Duncan Canyon, and you came on up, and you came into Robinson. Robinson was your first 1-hour stop, and you stayed there for an hour. And then you left from there, and you went on down to Last Chance. You went straight down the road. There was no pucker point. So you went down, and you stayed there for usually 30 minutes. Then you went on down, and you went in, did the first canyon into Devil's Thumb. There was a 30-minute hold there, and a pulse right at the top of the hill. And the trailers were there too, believe it or not. And then you went on from there. You went and did the next canyon, which took you into Michigan Bluff. There was an hour hold there. And then you left there, and then you continued on into Forest Hill. Forest Hill downtown, not Bathwell.
Yeah.
Yeah, went downtown, and there was trailers up and down the whole road. They were there.
It used to be at the old vet clinic there at California Street.
Yeah. So you spent there an hour there, then you continued on, and then you took you down to Todd Valley is where you went, and you walked through Todd Valley, and then you went to White Oak Flat, and there was another hold there. That was another half hour. I think that was an hour hold there.
Yeah.
And then you dropped down to French, was it? Yeah, the French, Francisco's. But you continued on, and you actually crossed the river. You crossed the river crossing right there at first. I mean, right across the Rucky Trucky. That's what we used to do. And then you climbed up the other side, and you went into to Cool.
Part of Cool.
But you went over to Pointed Rocks, and there was a hold there. And then they held you there, and then you went on down.
We came up through Harper Springs.
Yep.
Okay, to Pointed Rocks.
Yep.
And I had a funny incident with the mule there at Pointed Rocks one year. The vets vetted her through, said I could leave, and Jim Edwards, the vet, handed me a cup of coffee. And he told me I could, have the coffee. And so I had the coffee in my hand, and I couldn't get the damn mule to go out. She wouldn't go out. She kept going out, turn around, come back. So it kept spilling the hot coffee on me. So she went out a ways, and she'd turn around and come back. I said, with some gun, I got her turned around, going again, and I just poured the hot coffee on her ass, and she went out. She left then.
So and then you went on into the finish from there. That was the end of it. No hands was always no hands then, and you finished at the top at Roby Point.
And then you were scared to death you weren't going to finish. You weren't going to make it through the town or through the blocks to the fairgrounds.
Yeah, well, that was a hard. You would walk to the fairgrounds, and that hill was hard to walk on your own 2 feet out of there. I sat there, God, you had to drag them out of there. I sat there, this is not fun. But that's where they stopped your time, and you went to the fairgrounds.
Well, No Hands Bridge, it never had a railing on it. That's how it got its name, No Hands. Okay, then Larry Sudgeon, when he was president of Tevis, okay, and we had a bad winter and it kind of tore the bridge up. Well, the forestry kind of took it over, so they kind of let the forestry have it. That's the way I heard it, anyway. And so the forestry says, well, there got to be some railings on this bridge. So the forestry had railings put on the bridge. And we changed it to Hans Bridge. We used to call it Hans Bridge.
So can I comment?
Yeah.
So the story I heard is that some young girl looked at her mom or uncle or somebody at the end of the thing and put her hands out and said, "Look, Mom, no hands." And that's before the railing was put on. And that's when it kind of got nicknamed. And I don't know if that was Wendell's granddaughter or not.
Can you talk about that? Do you know?
I don't know about that
Okay.
myself. I mean, I just
Well,
remember.
that would be Marion Arnold.
It would
Yeah.
be Marion
Well, Wendell had 3 daughters.
Okay.
Marion Arnold's the one that rode all the time. And I know Marion pretty well, but
You'll hear more about that.
Yeah.
Probably from Kathy or somebody. But yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
Pat, you're on stage. Pat, you finished 21 times.
So before she starts, go ahead and address how many times you've done the race and finished, and then go into her question.
Yeah, I want to know how many glasses of whiskey you had each time you sent your entry in.
I've completed it 21 times. 13 of them on 13 on one quarter horse, 2 of them on another quarter horse, which are her mom prior. And then I've also done it 4 times, 4, 5, 6 times on an Arabian and twice on a Frisian Arabian cross. So I have ridden not your normal horses on this. When I first started, I started with a little Poco Bueno horse. She was 14.2. She was my Gymkhana horse. And and she was very, very competitive, to say the least. And she, I saw in the AERC that there was other Poco Bueno horse, another corporal was competing. So I figured, well, I own one, I'll give it a try. I started Tevis in 1980 was my first start. And I did it because it was a local ride. I didn't hear any stories about people getting too lost on it, and I kind of knew where I was going since I lived here in town. So I went ahead and proceeded to run her on it. She completed it twice. Then I had a blind stallion, and her got together, and they produced this other quarter horse. And she was a big Anglo mare. And I started her when she was 5, and her first completion was when she was 6. And she continued to produce 10 of them out there in a row. There wasn't much I could do about it, so I just continued on from that and did the other 3 on her. I did pull her out one year. She had a bow tendon she had when she was younger, and it was bothering her one year, and I borrowed a Morgan horse one year, so I rode that one time and completed it. So you just kept going until they couldn't go anymore. They were happy. Her last completion, I think she was 23 years old on her last completion. And then I retired her after that. I did a few more endurance rides on her until she was 24, during the 24 year, and then I retired her completely. But she's taken a few juniors through. Not on the Tevis. I rode her on that. She was kind of a grumpy mare, as Gordon would attest to. Very grumpy mare. And would never ride. People wanted to be. He says, "Well, why don't I use her for riding ties?" I says, "Because she'd kick everything off the trail." so we decided not to put her in anything like that. So, but other than that, you rode it her way. She was a consistent horse. She was never dead last. She usually averaged in the 30s and 40s on the ride, and usually would finish about 3 o'clock in the morning, which was fine with me. I mean, one year we did get a little tight. We had 2 minutes to spare, and but we made it because a girl had fallen off her horse just before Cougar Rock and passed out. And another friend of mine, Connie Creech, was with me, and we got the lady back on her horse, and we walked her to Red Star Checkpoint, where she passed out. That was the end of her. I said, well, at least she waited till there. And then we decided, okay, game on. We have to finish this thing because we were on the clock from then on. and we managed to get through it. So, but it's been a lot of changes over the year. The mayor has done it all on the new trail that through the California thing. She's never run the other trails. So, and you pretty much did it her way. Her trot outs for the vets that knew her, luckily it was her vets that were on the doing the ride most of the time, because she would only trot out in a progressive motion. If you turned her the wrong way on the trail, she would not trot. Hand, no matter what, it wasn't going to happen. She just wanted to go home from Squaw or wherever we started her from. So that was her. She was a big girl, and about 1,200 pounds, but she managed to do it, and everybody enjoyed it. She did it her way though, which got her through it. I think that saved her for it. So, but I enjoyed it. I actually, my easiest ride I've ever had on it was my Arabian. I must admit, my little Arabian. He kind of flew through it like it was nothing, and I've got one of them. He's done it 4 times, not with me on him. I had loaned him out for some juniors have taken him
I have a
through.
question for you. What
And my
has been
Frisian,
your
she's
most
gone it
memor-
twice.
memorable
And then
experience on
the
the ride?
and then my Most newest one, she's memorable- done it twice now already. She's going for a 3rd time this time. It's actually just and she's a pretty easy ride. Like, going through it and knowing the true partnership that you feel you bond with these animals. I mean, people don't understand it. All my horses I've ridden on this, they are hand raised by me and bred by me. And I think you acquire just a little bit of a different perspective of the animal. The animal respects you a little bit more. At home, they don't respect me at all. I'll give them that. But when I take them out on that trail, we are true partners. And it amazes me how much they do for you to get through the ride. And if you really pay attention to them, they tell you everything you need to know. And a lot of people just don't do that. And that's what that mare taught me. That mare taught me to pay attention to her. And she would get me through it if I let her do it her way and not press her. And she was willing to get the job done, even though she was a super lazy horse. But she said, okay, let's get this done, be done with it. She actually liked Tevis, thank goodness. And sometimes I've gone into off the California loop, gone into there, and people understand it's so nice up there at Forest Hill. It's breezy and cool, and you drop into that canyon that evening, and sometimes on a really hot day, the humidity comes off of that water, and it's just like walking into a sauna. And you think, oh, I'm never going to come out of this thing. But actually, the horse learns to move along to create their own breeze, and they actually cook along there pretty good. So, and a lot of people have teamed up with me at the night. I do run pretty fast at night. My horses have been trained to do that. I trust them 100% with my life. And a lot of people have waited and have gone out and followed my horses because they know they don't do anything hazardous. They know where every rock is on that trail. And if there's a rock in the way, they'll stop and walk over it, and then they'll continue on. But you can't see it, and they just take off on you, and it's pitch black dark out there. But it's a fun ride. Keeps you awake.
What's the most crazy thing that happened to you on a ride?
On Tevis? Oh, it's hard to say. I mean, I enjoyed riding Tevis and the mule, but it's just Tevis is Tevis, and I just enjoy it all the time of riding it. And like I say, you bond with the animal,
Say your coffee is.
and you and the animal do well. You hope to finish. That's what I went to finish.
I don't know that I have any more.
I didn't go to race it. I went to finish it, and it's a tough ride.
Biggest changes. The reason I asked about some of the biggest changes wasn't so much where the stops were, but what have you seen happen with veterinarian and the stops? I mean, like you mentioned, there was nothing. They didn't provide water and hay when I rode the first year in '70.
No, right.
Now, it's a gourmet. So I'm just curious of how your feeling is about that. About what's provided. Do you think it's good? Do you like the idea that they provide more? Or
Over the years, the changes that mostly have compiled over it is the way they run it now, as far as they assist you. They did not. There was no assistance. The trailers had to go to the checkpoints. What they would do if your number was called and you were pulled, they did have the radio things, and they would radio where your crew. Your crew was probably at the next checkpoint somewhere with your trailer. And they would call out, this number has been pulled, you need to go pick up your horse, wherever they were. And unfortunately, I was pulled twice at Last Chance. Don't ever get pulled at Last Chance, the worst place in the world. It takes too long for them to come get you. Nowadays, there's a trailer sitting there waiting to take you out. There was not in those days. My husband had to go all the way down, come back and get me, and that took him 3 hours to come get me when I got pulled there. So the second time I got pulled there, I had my vet there, and my horse had just twisted an ankle going into the checkpoint at Last Chance, and he says, she's off. I sat there. My trailer is sitting at Devil's Thumb. It takes me 2 hours to physically walk out of here on my 2 feet and get out. Can I go? He says he kept my card and let me out. The vets really worked with you. They understood. A little twisted ankle wasn't going to hurt them. Actually, when I got to Devil's Thumb, the horse was perfectly sound. So, but they already had my card. It was no big deal. At least I got to walk out there, still waiting 6 hours. But that's where the trailers, I think the crews were more involved. Nowadays, they're not. They come to 2 checkpoints, and otherwise you hardly ever see them. I mean, few people have nice, good, athletic crew that can actually get into couple of the other checkpoints. But in the old days, no, your drivers were the people that came and rescued you. And nowadays they don't require that. So that's the biggest change I see in it. It's nice that they have all that stuff. It keeps you moving, I think, a little more. You need to keep moving now more than you did in the old days. The old days you could spend more time because of, I guess, the way the terrain has changed, or however they changed the course. But in the old days, you could finish. Used to finish at 1 o'clock in the morning. And it was no problem. I wasn't going any faster than I do now. Now I'm lucky to get done at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning. So, but I'm running the same pace. But it's more, and I'm only getting 2 chances to stop. They're holding you in more checkpoints, I think, than they did in the old days. You're not holding you there, but you've got to get food in those animals. They didn't keep them going, or they just run out of gas. So, and then sometimes the people on their backs, me, I would get a little ill. So you would have to recuperate, so it'd be a little rough on you. But as far as that's the biggest change I see is how the crews and the vets were working with you very well. I think in the old days, I think they weren't quite as scientific and really hard pressed as they are now. I mean, it was more of a, like in the old days when, okay, a little gimpies, your horse is going to die from that. Walk out of here, maybe it'll get better. You don't get those options anymore. Nowadays, you're a little gimpy, you're out. So it's really more picky now, I think. I think it's because a lot more people, I think sometimes are on it that don't understand what they're in for. I try to tell people it's a beautiful ride. It's fantastic. And it's a true trail ride. It truly is. And if you use your horsemanship, you'll get through it and you keep moving on it. But if you sit there and you start racing and you're going for broke, it's going to eat you. It's just going to get you. So that's one thing. That's the biggest thing that educated me on it is you just have to keep a constant thing and pay attention and not pressure your animals. And there is no magic pill to get them through it out there. And I think everybody's looking for it, and it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. It's training and not overtraining. I have been shoeing my own horses since for 40 years now, I think. Yep. And I went to Sierra College, had a class, and I took the class. It was a full semester and to teach do shoeing, cold shoeing, and I've been doing it ever since. The mare that I rode you, I did all of her shoeing. One time I actually had to put shoes on my Frisian horse because I do Virginia City 100 as well. I do that every year too, and I would at 50 miles. She weighs 1,400 pounds compared to a normal Arabian who only weighs 800 pounds. Well, she wore the shoes out in the back. So I had to get my gear out and put new shoes on her hinds so I could finish the the rest of the 100 of the Virginia City, which we finished, and she top 10 in that. So you do have to improvise. I have learned to shoot, and I've been doing it for a long time. I don't use pads. A lot of people do on the ride. When I've done a little bit on when I ran the quarter horse, she wore real thin pads on the Tevis, because it's not really that rocky after you start looking at it. And then I would put impact pads on it when I did Virginia City, because that's a harder ride. As far as right now I run straight iron with no pads, because that ride is not that. The rocks that you're going to be on the Tevis, you have to walk over anyway, unless you want to lame your horse. So you just slow down and walk over them. And then I run her pretty much just straight. In fact, I just put her shoes on yesterday. So she's ready to go for this year.
Well, I shot on my own for years, for a long time, and did well. I used steel, and I haven't found anything better than steel out there. As long as you keep the horse balanced and all 4 feet pretty well balanced, and you'll do well with the horse shoeing it. Or the mule. The mule was not much different than shoeing my own horses. And I did professional for a long time. I shot a lot of Tevis riders and a lot of endurance riders over the years, and had no problem with those horses. So I'm a believer in just good old steel. They got a lot of stuff out there, but I don't believe in a lot of it, okay? It just steel. I was better with steel on my horse's feet, and they had no problems.
Is there any final comment you'd like the Tevis people to know?
Just have a good ride.
Have a good ride and
Have
pay
a nice
attention.
ride.
And pay attention to your horse. If you really listen, they tell you everything through those little ears on top of their heads.
Well, the buckle is the gold medal of endurance riding, as far as I'm concerned. You know, the Tevis is where it all began. That's what started endurance riding. It's what kicked the whole idea off. And worldwide, it is known as the greatest accomplishment in endurance riding. I mean, we have international riding now, and we have actual gold medals for individuals and team medals and all of that. But this is where it all began. And this ride is so difficult to finish. You know, you have a 50-50 chance of making it into Auburn. So by those definitions, it is the most significant ride that I believe that you can do. So the buckle, to wear that buckle is a privilege. You can't buy it anywhere. You know, you might inherit it if you're lucky, but to wear the one that you earned is very significant. It's a way of, you know, kind of a stamp of approval that I made it. If I can survive the Tevis, then I can do anything.